What's up guys, it's me Nathan. You may remember me from... Yeah. Well, I'm over that now, and I'm only going to be covering one film this time, that being Dune. Before I get started, I'm going to be covering some major spoilers for the 2021 Denis Villeneuve Dune film. So if you're thinking I'm going to cover the 1984 one, I'm not. For a quick overview, I'm going to be covering the narrative structure, much like I did when I... But I'm also going to be covering characters, theme, and cinematography of Dune. So let's get started with the narrative structure of Dune. So I'm only going to be covering the basic elements of each section with a bit of deep analysis for each one. So I'll cover a bit of the narrative structure so I'll have enough time to move on to character and theme, cinematography. So yeah, you get the point. Dune starts out pretty linearly with Paul Atreides of House Atreides waking up from a dream he has of a Fremen girl who has blue eyes. And if a lot of those words mean nothing to you at all, they didn't mean much to me when I first saw the film. Let me give some context, some background before we go further. So House Atreides is led by Paul's father, Leto, which they're tasked to go to Arrakis, which is this desert planet, and they're basically tasked to go there by the Emperor of the Universe. And on Arrakis, there lives the Fremen people, and there also lives the resource known as spice, which is the most valuable resource in the entire galaxy as it allows for space travel. And the Fremen people have adapted to the harsh climate of Arrakis, and they've also incorporated spice into their culture and their lifestyle and such, and as a result of being so close to spice, their eyes have turned blue. Now that's just like the bare bones necessities of like Atreides and Fremen and like Iraq, all that stuff. So if you want to know more about it, just like watch the movie or read the book if you really want to put yourself through that. But yeah, so there's just some background for you. Now skipping over the beginning part and basically glossing over just the rest of the film, as Paul gets to Arrakis, he sees more and more visions of the same Fremen girl with blue eyes. And these are basically, as Paul finds out, visions of the future and what his life's going to be like. This specific detail contributes to the overall storytelling and narrative of Dune as it foreshadows the climax and the resolution of the film, but it also leads to the intricacies and the development of Paul's character and what his motivations are for not only this movie, but Dune Part 2, which will come out next year. Now, like I've said, the narrative structure most directly contributes to Paul's progression as a character and his growth of the story, which we'll see that fulfill itself next year in the next film. And that leads me to our next segment, which is character. So the main focus of Dune is Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, and his entire character and idea is formed around obedience and pressure. The obedience and pressure coming from his dad's side, as he's basically the heir to a massive empire, and from his mom's side as he's the descendant of the Bene Gesserit. And basically the Bene Gesserit is a faction in the Dune universe who are predominantly female, and they possess supernatural powers that they pass down through lineage, which Paul's mom is part of the Bene Gesserit. And this makes it weird because Paul is a male, so he doesn't fit with the qualities of the Bene Gesserit. So along with these foundations put into Paul's life, this fuels his motivation and progression throughout the story, as not only as he has to deal with these visions of the Fremen and his future, but he has to deal with the pressure of being the heir to a massive empire and the failed offspring of the Bene Gesserit. Now, I only wanted to cover Paul Atreides as there's honestly not that many interesting characters in Dune so far. There's Leto, I guess, and there's like Duncan Idaho, which, hey guys, that's weird. Duncan Idaho, Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho. That's okay. Anyways, whatever. Let's move on to theme. The theme is a bit harder to place down, as the 2021 Dune film is just kind of a prelude to the Dune saga itself. And there's like the original books, there's a cajillion spin-offs and sequels and prequels, and just kind of analyzing the theme of just Dune the film wouldn't do a well enough justice to the overall meaning of the entire universe. So take this with a bit of grain of salt, but here we go. Specifically, judging from the standpoint of the first movie, Dune develops a strong theme of promises and control. Firstly, Paul and the rest of House Atreides are promised the land of Arrakis in order to form diplomatic relations and the harvesting of spice. This promise is broken by House Atreides basically being led astray and being ambushed by a rival faction, House Harkonnen, which basically breaks the Emperor's promise to House Atreides, as House Harkonnen were always meant to be in control of Arrakis and were always meant to be in control of spice. The promise of Paul developing supernatural powers through the Bene Gesserit line is broken as the fact that Paul is born male and he doesn't align with the female principles of the Bene Gesserit. Thus, the breaking of this promise and the visions of the Fremen and the future basically pushes Paul into a forced reality against his will. This is furthered by the fact that he's the next heir of a massive empire, even if he really doesn't want to be, and he's half Bene Gesserit, even if he doesn't even want these powers, or even if he's shunned by this group entirely. Now, that's all I'm going to go into, as I'm sure I missed some stuff and we're wrong about some things, as this is just one movie in a massive universe, and I'm just not influenced in the whole Dune lore, so like I said, take it with a grain of salt. Okay, now on to the final segment, which is cinematography. Now, to really understand the cinematography of Dune, we have to look deeper into the director, Denis Villeneuve's filmography. Now, Denis Villeneuve's been responsible for several abstract and complex films in the past, that being Prisoners, Blade Runner 2047, and Arrival, which I've covered before. And some of the most important things about Denis Villeneuve's style is the use of color grading and negative space in his films. Like, just look at this iconic still from Blade Runner 2047, and this one from Arrival. Now, it's easy to see how this influences how Denis Villeneuve crafts Dune throughout the movie, as a lot of scenes have this grandiose, eerie feeling of an otherworldly planet, as it's a weird alien planet, Arrakis, and he does this through the use of intense colors just popping out of the screen with color grading, and just a lot of space in scenes that are just not used at all with negative space. Now, scenes like these show the world and the environment of Arrakis and just Dune entirely, but they also show the thematic and storytelling elements of Dune as well, as they can give an insight to Paul's isolation after the House Harkonnen assault, or Paul's triumphant character growth and confidence as he's able to stand in front of this massive sandworm of Arrakis, which is just the most terrifying thing in human creation. Like seriously, like, oh my God. These aspects of Villeneuve's cinematography contribute to a bizarre, otherworldly feeling to his film, and also contribute to the thematic and storytelling elements that will continue into part 2. Now, that's all I have to say about Dune 2021 by Denis Villeneuve. Thank you so much for watching.